Hey guys, welcome back! The Sega Dreamcast is turning 16 years old, at least in the United States and in Europe. So, to commemorate the birthday of one of the most impressive and underrated video game consoles ever, here's my personal top 10 video games for Sega's last system.
The Sega Dreamcast. Never had one back then, but played a lot at a friend's house. And we had no idea of the video output quality that it was capable of. Besides that, it has the most incredible arcade-perfect ports that I've ever seen on a home system. Without further ado, let's take a look at my favorite 10 video games on the Sega Dreamcast.
Number 10.
Developed by UEP Systems and published by Sega in 1999, Cool Borders Burn is known in Europe as Snow Surfers, and it's a Dreamcast exclusive video game that, in my opinion, simply crushed all other snowboarding titles available in the late 90s on other systems, such as 1080 Degrees and even the titles from the Cool Borders series, which was UEP Systems' own unspoken predecessor to this title. Sony owned the rights in the US for distribution of the Cool Borders franchise, so they had to change its name in that region to Rippin' Riders Snowboarding. Having a different name in each territory doesn't help, and Snow Surfers suffered from that huge overlook from the public. I've always enjoyed downhill kind of stuff, and this game has some pretty good downhill courses, with a few unlockable secret levels, and it focuses on high-flying tricks and stunts that predated EA's genre-defining SSX franchise that started a year later. I believe that Snow Surfers is the only real snowboarding video game available for the Dreamcast, and it got me hooked for its awesome and solid physics engine and as well pretty good selection of audio tracks.
Number 9.
Revolt was already available for PC, but on mine I wasn't able to play it with decent frame rates. So, at every possible moment, I would borrow my friend's Dreamcast to experience Revolt at its best. Developed by Pro and published in 1999 by the extinct Acclaim simultaneously for the PC, Nintendo 64 and PlayStation, it was later also available for the Dreamcast. I'm sure that every single one of you have played Revolt, so you know that it is a freaking addictive car racing title with a huge lineup of extremely well reproduced remote controlled vehicles with incredibly sharp and shiny reflection effects. The tracks available are also extremely well made, and the level of detail and realism is something to behold. There's also included a very simple to use track editor, and even today there's new tracks and cars being released for the PC version. Definitely worth checking out.
Number 8.
Sega always had good racing games, and the Dreamcast has a lot of those, so for racing video game fans like me, it's like being in heaven. Le Mans 24 Hours is a good example of an amazing and detailed racing game with its impressive weather effects, realistically rendered supercars designed with the assistance of real Le Mans teams, and a ton of options that let you play the way you want to. Developed and published by Infogrames in November of 2000, Le Mans 24 Hours, or Test Drive Le Mans as it is known in the US, gives us the option to race the actual Le Mans 24 Hours over 24 actual hours. Isn't this awesome? I've always enjoyed endurance type of racing games, and this was years ahead of its time. It was also available for the PlayStation, Windows PCs, Game Boy Color and the PlayStation 2. Yeah, I know that there are other more awesome and interesting shmups for the Dreamcast, but GigaWing was the one that I've played the most. Back then I wasn't aware of the quantity of shmups that were being released for the Dreamcast, mostly in Japan and the United States. I've always enjoyed playing this type of games at the arcades, and never thought that many of those later titles would ever had a European release for home consoles. GigaWing is an arcade original game by Takumi that was eventually ported for the Dreamcast and published in Europe in October of 2000 by Version Interactive. You know what happens in this frenetic genre. We choose a craft and shoot everything on sight through 7 stages. At the end of every stage there's a boss fight, and if we plan to reach the 7th level, we must preserve at least one of the 3 lives that are given to us at the beginning of the game. Just play it in easy mode and you're good to go.
Number 6.
Here's where the Project Gotham Racing series started. Metropolis Street Racer is still one of the best racing titles ever released for a home console. Sega was after someone that could face Sony's Gran Turismo, so they handpicked Bizarre Creations, which came up with this enormous game that, unfortunately due to a series of delays, came in a time when the Dreamcast was already fading out. It features dozens of realistically simulated vehicles and a huge number of 262 tracks. Its detailed and accurate recreations of London, San Francisco and Tokyo, and the innovative feature of recreating day and night cycles using the internal clock of the Dreamcast was just something quite new back then. We have also the possibility to add in our own failed comments when we crash, and the fictional radio station similar to the Grand Theft Auto series was another nice touch to such a huge game.
Number 5.
The Dreamcast port of Hydro Thunder was the closest we could get to the arcade cabinet version. It was available at Sega's Dreamcast launch, but didn't grab the attention it deserved. Even to this day, I see it as one of the most enjoyable games for this console and, definitely, the best of its launch lineup. This game was developed and published by Midway, in that forever remembered Dreamcast's US launch date, September the 9th of 1999. Hydro Thunder has quite forgettable music, but the sound effects, voices, impressive water effects, massive jumps and an absolutely mind-blowing final level set inside a pyramid turns it into the most impressive and addictive speedboat racing game ever. Again, try it on the Dreamcast, cause it is the only arcade perfect port made for home systems. The original Sega Rally was a reference on a Saturn during the previous generation of consoles, so a lot of hype was around the release of Sega Rally 2, which was a huge success in arcades right before receiving its own conversion for the European launch of the Dreamcast in October 14th of 1999. This release date made sense, cause in Europe this kind of motorsport is followed by millions of passionate fans. Sega Rally 2 succeeds brilliantly in bringing the arcade experience home, but with more tracks and cars, and the 10-year championship series of the single player has more length, depth and car setup options than the original, making for a substantial challenge. It is a classic on the arcade racing genre and a must-have in every Sega Dreamcast collection. I only wished that the cars felt a little bit heavier.
Number 3.
Rayman 2: The Great Escape is my favorite 3D platform game on the Dreamcast. In fact, I believe that it's one of my favorite games ever across all platforms, being such a memorable platform experience that holds up impressively well today. Firstly available for the Nintendo 64 and PC, the Dreamcast version was highly enhanced, with several 2D sprites being replaced by 3D models and also exclusive minigames that are playable by finding hidden crystals. Set in a colorful and vibrant world, every aspect on the Dreamcast version of Rayman 2 is simply brilliant, with flawless and masterful game design, controls, audio, and even its own soundtrack. It was also available for other systems, but look nowhere else. The Dreamcast version is the one to have.
Number 2.
Shenmue was originally in development for the Sega Saturn, but thankfully was pushed over for the Dreamcast, giving the platform one awesome and epic exclusive title. Set in an immersive open-world 80s Japanese environment, Shenmue tells the story of Ryu Azuki, a young man who sees his father killed by a mysterious warrior.
Father!
Never crossed my mind that the guy who created Outrun, Hang-On and Virtua Fighter would come up with such a blockbuster video game like Shenmue. But Yu Suzuki was desperate to create a longer and greater involvement for the player and not continue to develop few minutes long experiences like those three I've mentioned. So we created this large open environment with subquests and minigames, and even worked with interior design decorators to create rooms and furniture for the game. Another curious fact was that Yu Suzuki also casted some Sega's employees with the intention of creating virtual in-game characters of themselves. Shenmue has the astonishing number of more than 300 characters, completely different from one another.
You looking for some of this? You stupid! That's enough. You put on quite a show, boy.
Number 1.
Now, here's the one that I've enjoyed the most. Crazy Taxi gives you a simple goal. Use the limited time available to transport as many passengers as possible across the city. It's that simple, and with such an amazing soundtrack, with The Offspring and Bad Religion playing in the background, well, it's just freaking insane. Another arcade perfect port that, the more I play, the more I want to play it. And I can say that Crazy Taxi is probably even better than the arcade original. It's easier to control and to pull off ridiculous combos. It even comes with a totally and quite hard all new city to explore, exclusive to the home versions of the game. Graphically stunning and with a breakneck speed, Crazy Taxi is a must-have, but be careful. The level of addictiveness will drastically increase the more you play it.
Go that way, right? Don't do it.
Sorry if there's no RPG or fighting games on this list, but by then, when the PlayStation and the Dreamcast were out, my patience for this kind of games was extremely scarce. So guys, hope you've enjoyed my personal top 10 video games for the Dreamcast. I'm still discovering new titles, and its shmup library is simply mind-blowing. It's a genre that I really enjoy playing on the system, despite prices being really unappealing. So, if you've enjoyed this episode of the pixelthing, just share, like and subscribe to be the first to watch my weekly videos. And if you've missed my latest, Just click on these examples and you'll certainly be transported back in time. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next week.